All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. And as a prompt for a conversation this morning, which is on Dousing tension in the current nationwide protests, let's take a listen. The comments of the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, when he joined us on the network news last night.
It's indeed a very, very sad day. We knew that this was going to happen. Nigeria is a democratic nation, and we know this democratic process of having protests are legitimate. But we also knew, like I said earlier, that it is going to be seized, it is going to, to be taken over by hoodlums and criminals, and we were proved exactly right. The president has always said there was no need for this kind of protest. He was listening to the youth who were baking this kind of agitation. The anxiety was high, and government had always insisted that it was not the right thing to do. Protests are right, yes. Is it within their democratic norms? Yes. With their hardship in the land? We will also agree that there was no time that the president or government had said that Nigeria did not experience this hardship or things are not a bit challenging for Nigerians. But we knew that protests couldn't solve this problem, and today we were proved exactly right. The president, when he came on, tackled head-on all those things that past administrations have been lacked the courage to embark upon: the fuel subsidy removal, the unification of the exchange rate, and so many other ambitious initiatives of the president aimed at revamping the economy, putting it on the track to sustainable progress and development for our dear nation. And we knew that, of course, this was going to come with some shocks. The president had admitted severally. We had talked about it. We knew that there were going to be issues. It was a turbulent period, we knew, and that was why government embarked on a lot of ambitious initiatives to ensure that Nigerians had both an immediate, short-term and long-term relief from those kind of shocks. It doesn't pay anyone. Protesters going to loot shops, break homes, touch offices, even at some point even try to get access into a government house. We've seen that situation in Kano, where protesters, so-called protesters, were trying to go into Kano government house. These are no longer protests. These are violent people who were trying to, go against established procedures, going against law and order. And there's no way security agencies will continue to fold their arms. Like I've said before, we knew that something was likely to go wrong, and indeed government has been proved right. So we call on all stakeholders in the Nigerian project to join hands with government. There must be a Nigeria first before we can have good governance. We can't have good governance in a situation of violence, in a situation of anarchy. And let the protesters please see reason. It's an appeal once again to them by government that they should come together.
Well, that was Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, yesterday on our network news, trying to appeal to Nigerians to be calm and that government is working. Well, to speak more on today's topic, we have in the studio our guest already seated, and to douse tension in nationwide protest is we have Mr. Lawrence Alaobi. Is a lawyer and a former Alobi. Yeah. Okay, Alobi. All right. Sorry. He's the former Commissioner of Police, FCT. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Also, joining us also is Professor Joseph Ochogu, DG Institute of Peace and Conflict Resolution. You're welcome.
Good morning, Nigerians. And, we are here to have a conversation and hoping that the tensions will be doused.
All right. Okay.
It's of course a woman who is at the forefront of making sure that tension is doused, whether it's Boko Haram issue or whatever. He's a security expert who wants peace all the time. We have with us Dr. Kabir Adamu, a security risk management expert. Many thanks for having us.
Thank you, the pleasure.
Having you, rather. I said having us because you're always with us. So.
All right. Okay.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's kickstart our conversation this morning. And let's just have a review of what happened yesterday. Professor Ochogo, you joined us for conversation yesterday. I mean, and we talked about most of these issues yesterday. But from what happened, okay?
You'd have, looks like Ignatius is ready to feed us with what is happening on the streets of Abuja. Ignatius, if you can hear us, good morning to you. Where exactly are you? And what's the atmosphere like?
Yeah, good morning. Well, I am standing here in front of the entrance to the Ego Square here in Abuja. The atmosphere is very, very calm and quiet. Business district here in Abuja is just as usual, very cool, calm, and serene. In fact, let me start from when I was coming into the city center here. From the express road in Kubwa. I discovered that everybody was going about their normal businesses. The bus stops, we are having passengers all quietly seated, some standing waiting to board vehicles to their various business places. The road was quite free, as usual, just like a normal day. And then even when you're coming into the Wuse axis here, I discovered that same thing. All businesses were going. People were really eager to board vehicles to some of the places they're going. And then private vehicles too, who were some going for walks, are still on the road, going no disruption. Then here at the business district here in the Ego Square, you can see nothing. It's just the presence of security personnel here. Even along the road, you see some pockets of security personnel around, patrolling. So from what we've seen so far this morning, just like what happened yesterday, yesterday too in the morning it was very quiet. Before in the afternoon we had some people begin to show up. This morning at the moment, everywhere is very quiet and serene. Then we'll see some vehicles too. This morning you see moving around, you see them with leaves on their vehicles, So but at the moment, everywhere here in the central business district is very quiet. Movements, normal. Offices here at the Federal Secretariat here, we can see that some of the offices are open. Any moment, I think from the look of things, staff will be coming into the offices. So that is the situation at the moment.
All right. You said any moment you would see staff coming to the offices at the Federal Secretariat, but give us a picture of what it's like at the moment. Is it as busy as it should be at this time on a normal day? Do you really think that the number of people coming into the Federal Secretariat at this moment is what it should be like?
No. It's natural that in a situation where there are apprehensions sometimes, you don't have the full capacity of the number of persons you expect in a place like the Federal Secretariat. Normally by this time on a normal day, on a day that there's no apprehension, you see buses belonging to the various ministries, bringing in staff into the office. But now, as it is, it's not like that. But what we see that one or two persons coming in individually. So, but we don't know if that will later happen. But at the moment, the normal influx of no disturbance, as I said, and there's no barricade anywhere, but just we have the presence of security men and with their vehicles and the officers around. That is just how it is this morning.
Okay. All right. Okay. Ignatius, we'll get back to you for an update in the course of this program. Thank you very much for that update there. Let's come back to the studio. Just like he said, this was the situation we had yesterday. In the morning time, there was peace until about 11, 12 when the protesters started coming out and we had all these other ugly incidents. Professor Ochogo, now let's have a review of what happened yesterday. We talked about this issue and the need for protesters to actually protest, but to do it in an orderly and a peaceful manner. But from what happened yesterday, what can you say to what happened?
I think what happened yesterday was most unfortunate. And I think that we must commend and salute our intelligence community for spotting these, from the very onset, and why they had cautioned that there shouldn't be protest. And I think likely that has to do with the level of fragility, of our respective communities. What I mean by fragility is that on a normal day, for example, you go through Yanya is riotous. So when you have a protest, there is no way, you're going to stop places like Nyanya Maraba, from not escalating into violence. I think that is one particular component that we need to look at. And I think that is why the government and all responsible stakeholders came out to say, no, there is no need for protest at this time, because once the situation is too bad, for protest to happen. There's so much of perhaps hunger and anger. And then when you fuel those two things, it's a combustion you're going to have. It is not surprising, therefore, that what happened in terms of the protest. But I can tell you that if you situate the context within which the protest took place, why there are areas there were peaceful protests, for example, like in Plateau State, and it was successfully so. In other states, you cannot say it. And you look at how the protests graduated and escalated from protests to perhaps riot and most likely uprising. So you can see that 3 layers of how protests have graduated, from normal protests to riot to uprising. And why do I say uprising? Uprising in the sense that if you look at Kanu, you look at the target of the supposed protesters or rioters. They are looking at the artery of government at the subnational level. They are all on the motion to the State House, which is the artery of any government. And there is no responsible government that will watch itself, being taken down because it has left the level of protest. And that is why I think we all need to be very cautious. I want to appeal to Nigerian political elite, both those in government, those in opposition. I want to appeal to bureaucratic elite. I want to appeal to the technocratic elite and the business elite in Nigeria, that more than ever before they need to build a national consensus on how we need to proceed as a nation. Because if you look at what is happening, if we allow it to fester and we think whether we want to manipulate the system to cause the kind of disorder that we want to have, nobody is going to escape it. That is why we need a national elite consensus, on critical areas of our national lifestyle for us to proceed as a people, as a nation. Because when crises like this are happening and people are saying, no, there is no need for it, it is because the situation, the existential realities, feeds into these things and makes it a bit difficult. Okay. Because even everybody is affected. No, but what we are saying is that perhaps there is hope, if we incrementally reform, to get us out of this. But when people begin to take advantage and to vent anger because of the pains of the existential realities, then we're going to suffer much. And that is why responsible stakeholders must put their hands on the deck, to ensure that, I think that those who want the protest in the first instance, the moral responsibility on their partner is to say, please, we're no longer protesting for now. Can the government be allowed to go into action to remedy some of the things that they need to remedy? And I think that this is the time, for protesters who genuinely wanted to protest and started the call for protest, to begin to roll back and come to a table of conversation with their supposed charter of demand, to engage with the government. And engaging with the government at this time shouldn't be engaging with just the government at the federal level. Because the federal level can do certain things, but the real art of governance actually at the sub-national level. I had expected, for example, that civil society organizations, mobilizers of this protest, that okay, wait a minute, we've gained something. And what is that gain? Perhaps the judgment from the Supreme Court on the autonomy of the local government council areas, and let us lead protests to ensure that our local government system works. Because the local government is the frontline agency of governance, for conflict prevention, conflict management, conflict resolution, as well as service delivery, to average Nigerian citizen. But we all agree that that component of government has been very weak over the years, in some places near existent, non-existent in certain places. So we need to activate how this level of government works. And that is why, for example, even though there is a palliative to certain places, it never gets down to the right people at the grassroots, because there is no local government system in that place that have the right database in terms of basic health facilities, education, and certain things, that matters to the daily needs of the people. So I think that protesters and leaders of protesting organizations need to be more strategic. They need to be more strategic, they need to be more technical, particularly that their aim is to end bad government or bad governance. So for us to have this level of good governance and to make mileage around it is to ensure, that government at all levels are performing their roles that they need to perform. I think that the federal government have listened to a very large extent, and that is why you see the waiver of taxations, on all imports of essential commodities, including drugs, food, flour, rice, and certain things, to ensure that certain things come in. Those are cautionary effects.
And the directive by government to NNPCL to give Dangote...
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I think that is revolutionary.
It is.
Knowing that the oil sector have been down the line for over 20 years or more. So if the government concedes that, and those things take little time, for them to begin to manifest, I think that we need to begin to build some level of trust and confidence in our systems.
Confidence, like what you've said there, Professor Ochogo, is one of the, or rather are the main issues that the protesters have with government. And then patience, which you're calling for, to see some of the policies of government translate into a better Nigeria, is what the protesters also lack.
That's right.
In all of this. So, but how do we move forward now that we're already here? Should be what we should be looking at, of course, because there are so many issues. And then we have with us also joining us for this conversation, but via Zoom, Honorable Kingsley Femi Fowl, Honorable Commissioner for Information and Communications, Kogi State. Many thanks, Honorable Fowl, for joining us.
Morning, Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right, maybe we should just hear your comments about what transpired in Kogi State yesterday. Give us a feel of what it was like and what action. You heard Professor Ochogo talk about the fact that it's not about the federal government alone. The subnationals have a role to play. Tell us some of the things, that the government of Kogi State is doing or has done and is planning to do with the fallout of this protest.
Thank you very much. And I agree absolutely with his position on the matter that subnationals need to also play their role. It's not just about the federal government alone. And what we did at our level here is to properly engage our people and show them the pathway to economic recovery, and try to recalibrate our social setting, and also ensure that we show them what we are doing to be able to bring our economy back to life. That's what we are doing in the state that is quite different from so many other states. A few days ago, we had a youth summit in the state where the governor addressed them, and they also tried to convince them to believe in the policies of the federal government and the state government, and what they start to gain if they do not take to the paths of violence in the name of protest. All of this cascaded into to the local government level. Those programs were held at local government level to properly sensitize the people. And we also use our information infrastructure in the state to give the proper orientation to the people. When the people see the actions of government and see what you are doing to better their lives, definitely they will have a lot of confidence in what you are doing. So what an average Kogite is saying at the moment is that they believe in the policies of the president, they believe in the policies of the governor, they are already seeing the fruits of this policy, and there was no need whatsoever to hit the streets to destroy public infrastructure. We have been justified with our position and our efforts to ensure that we don't have violent protests in Kogi State, going by what we saw in some other states yesterday. So we need to properly talk to our people, give them the right orientation. We are not saying that there is no hardship in Nigeria. When those decisions were taken, we know that there will be a lot of shocks, a lot of ripple effects, and all of that. But what are we doing to be able to get out of it? For instance, if you are removing the oil subsidy, it means you are also saving a lot of funds for infrastructural development, to be able to create an environment that will be able to lead to the establishment of a lot of industries and attract a lot of foreign investment that will also engage the youths and the women. So they need to have confidence in all of this. And how we communicate this to the people is also very important. I agree absolutely with the last speaker. And I can say that yesterday there was no single protest in the entire Kogi state. People went about their normal businesses. Our protests are on the farm, where our farmers have been empowered. Their capacity have been raised to produce more food and crush the prices of foodstuff in our state. So these are some of the things that we need to do as a nation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Commissioner of Information and Communication, Kogi State, Femi Fanwo, for giving us a brief of the state government engagement with the youths in Kogi State, and which we were also privy to. At least we had it on our program yesterday. The governor, engaging with the youths, and we also gathered that there was peace in Kogi State yesterday. We'll get back to you, but let's come back to the studio and let's Dr. Adamu. I want your review of what happened yesterday. Like, for instance, in some parts of the country, I mean, there was violence. The roads were blocked. Shops were looted, public property destroyed. I mean, so many other things. These kind of protests, could jeopardize security of the state, and it's not advisable. So how do we handle this issue?
Thank you. When we looked at the events of yesterday, we synthesized our three major issues. Number one is our image in the Committee of Nations. We're a democratic country. We have a president who is the bastion of democracy. He is reaping more or less what he has sown. Over the last years, he has demonstrated himself to be a champion of democracy. And events that happened before the protest and that happened yesterday and that would happen probably today and going forward would, to a large extent, determine whether that rule, that image that he has been able to attain would remain. So that's number one. Number two is the economy, the impact on the economy. Let's start with communication. It's been severely affected. Something as simple as bank transactions. The banks were mostly closed. Let me even start from that. And you can, by the time you start to collate the impact of the disruption that the protest has had on our economy, the granular economy up until the bigger organized sector, it's huge. I don't think anyone has been able to put it now, but with time...
Well, some people are saying it could cost us between 400 to 500 million.
Those are estimates.
Yes.
And usually those estimates are based on the organized sector. Those granular components. Yesterday we saw a woman in Kaduna, rioter, I don't want to call them protesters, entered her house and destroyed her property, picked her personal items. How do you capture that? How do you put it into this estimate that I've been? So that's number two. Number three is the security itself. The events of this protest are happening at a time when, sadly, our public security sector is at a position where its ability to provide both safety and security to Nigerians is weak, unfortunately. So what we saw are actors, different types, taking advantage of what I would describe as a breakdown of law and order to perpetrate criminality in different forms. One of the most horrid pictures for me was in Kano, when people were seen on a traffic light trying to destroy and bring down the three colors, those lamps holding the color. I mean, it reminded me of the protests that occurred around the Endsars period when warehouses with food were being raided by a lot of Nigerians, and then signposts were actually being removed and taken. So again, that component of public security was affected. The fourth one, which sadly, and I must commend especially the police for the role it has played, the restraint that I saw being exercised by our police officers is commendable. They were being provoked. We saw it. In fact, one of the most second horrid picture that I saw is also in Kano, where military vehicle was ferrying away items that had been stored in a particular warehouse that were being stolen. And then the guys were going after that vehicle and actually taking down the items from a military vehicle with armed military personnel holding their weapons. But they exercised restraint in terms of firing at the people who were trying to, because a security personnel who is in charge of policing functions within a protest has the right, for instance, to protect himself and then protect law-abiding citizens. But we saw a significant restraint by that. So that's how we looked at what happened yesterday. Number one, these three or four impacts that we saw. But going forward, what is important, especially for those who are calling for the protest, they've synthesized about 12 elements that we've seen. There are two sides, the sides of government and then the sides of the protesters. Nobody wants a total breakdown of law and order. What we saw yesterday was a near breakdown of law and order. We're at a stage where we need to ask ourselves, what do we need out of the protest? If we continue along the line of what happened yesterday, the sad part is we have places like Sudan that would give us an example, Kenya that would give us an example of what happened. Nobody wants that. So this is the time to pull back and re-strategize, both on the side of the government. Earlier on, we spoke about the trust deficit. If you have a situation where two sides are more or less at opposing ends, and there is a trust deficit, what do you need in that instance? Intercessors. Intercessors that would come in and find an amicable way for the two sides to move forward. I'm very happy with the posturing. Like I said, I think the president is very conscious of his position in terms of, first off, protest is a legitimate right in a democratic setting. But then the riots and the criminality we saw yesterday are things that should not occur. So this is when law enforcement, and in particular intelligence, needs to play in. There's what is called protest 2.0, 2.0. The protest we used to know in those days is not the protest that is occurring in the country at the moment. Modern day protest requires a different policing approach. It requires a different law enforcement approach. Now, I would like to see that from our security agencies. How do we isolate the criminals from the genuine protesters, and then provide the genuine protesters with the environment to air their views? And then more importantly, how does the government come in to say, we've heard you, this is what we are going to do, so that the tension is doused? And that's what I hope to see today. We've discussed, and I think Prof has mentioned it quite succinctly, the need for the subnationals to come in and play a role. So I'm hoping going forward, this is what we'll see, so that everybody's position, more or less, is stabilized. The protesters, what do they want? They want to be heard.
Yeah.
If they get the message that they've been heard, then maybe we'll see tension being doused going forward.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Dr. Adamu. Let's listen to Lawrence Alobi now, former Commissioner of Police, FCT. You have all the information of what happened yesterday across the country, different states. I'd like you to let us know what you feel, about the way the protest has gone, day one. And then, like Dr. Adamu is saying, do you think that security operatives, did a good job yesterday?
Yes, thank you very much. Like Prof and Dr. you have said, I think it's a very sad situation that we are losing so much. The economy, even in terms of governance, peace and security is being threatened. And this is not what we all bargained. It's a common saying that a wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
I will pause you at that point.
Let's
A
take
wise
Joseph
man
now.
learns from the mistakes
Of
of
others.
others. We have our colleague who is wise and is at the Moshood Abiola Stadium now. Let's find out if the protesters have learned from their mistakes yesterday. Joseph Otsen, good morning to you. Tell us what
Good morning.
Abiola Stadium, where you are at the moment.
Yes, we are right inside the Moshood Abiola Stadium. This is the place where the protesters converged yesterday. And today, people are granted entrance inside. I spoke with the security man there. He said, yeah, actually they are allowing people who want to come in here and practice and do their business. So business has resumed here. And behind me, the gym section there, you can see some people are there doing their exercise and so on. Yesterday, they were not allowed in here. And when we spoke with the security personnel, they said there are a lot of sporting facilities here. And they had security reports that some hoodlums want to come in here, and possibly most of the facilities here would have been vandalized, and that was why they were not allowed in yesterday. But today, there are no from the security, the stadium security men who are mounting that the gate is open for exercise, and so on, and other businesses that will go on around here. Also, on our way to here, we didn't notice any issue. Free flow of traffic, even though the roads were a little bit dry, but a lot of, I think that's early days, early hours, and people were moving on. So it's business here as usual at the National Stadium.
All right, many thanks, Joseph. So on your way to the stadium, and even as we speak now, the protesters are not converging. You can't see anyone, who is carrying placard or who is dressed in a way to protest this morning right there at that stadium. Is that what you're telling us?
No, we didn't see anybody. We just saw some signs of the leaves of yesterday and some vehicles still carrying out leaves. But there were no sign of protesters anywhere. I believe today, but it's still early hours. We don't know what will happen. We'll keep you updating you on that. But there were no signs. There's a free flow of movement. We saw some security personnel parading, moving around, patrolling around, and so on. That's just what is on. And here at the National Stadium, so we didn't see any protester anywhere. The gates open. The security men at the gate will just check you and find out what do you want to come and do here. If you say you're here for sports, they let you in here. If you have a business here that you're operating, they allow you in. So this is what the situation today.
All right, fantastic. We hope that you stay there and feed us with updates. Our cameraman here is telling us that at about 10, 11, you would have a better picture of whether the protesters intend to converge today at the Moshood Abiola Stadium or not. So, of course, we'll stay with you, Joseph, and please stay safe. All right, so CP Lawrence Alobi, sorry I paused you. Of course, I hope you're not protesting. So speak to us, about what you were trying to tell us about what you feel about the protest yesterday and how security agencies conducted themselves.
Yeah, you see, like I've said earlier, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And anything we do in life, just to apply wisdom. What is wisdom? Wisdom is application of knowledge. Now, if we reflect on what has happened, what happened yesterday, very regrettable, very sad. Now, the question is, what have those protesters, what have they gained? What have they gained? And of course, they've gained nothing around there and ended up destroying. The government has heard them. The government says, we've heard you. We do everything possible to ensure that things are better and things get improved for the benefit of the citizens. And I think our citizens should have a listening ear. Like our government too should have a listening ear. Let me also join Dr. Kabir to commend the police and the psychologists for the professional manner they manage the situation and control the situation. Because but now I think they've applied the principle of emotional intelligence to be able to control their own emotions and also my emotion of the protesters. Because if they had gone all out to use the force which they had under the law, it could be more devastating for them. But I think Nigerians should know that this country belongs to all of us. We're all stakeholders. We stand to gain nothing by destroying. Anger is a beastly attitude. And if we get angry and destroy, like we've done a lot of looting, arson was committed, people were attacked and so forth. You see, when the government says protest by protest in a very peaceful manner, and provided under Section 40 of the Constitution, Nigerian Constitution, peacefully, you got the rights to protest peacefully. Protest and civil demonstrations is a feature of democracy in all democratic societies. But then do it peacefully. But now, how have Nigerians done? Most of these protests have done it. Carried out this protest is very devastating. It's very violent. And Section 45B of the Constitution, 45 of the Constitution says that when the right to protest is not absolute. You have the right to protest, but if your protest is a threat to national defense, it's a threat to public safety and security, it's also a threat to the peace of the country or the society, or it's also a violation of that people's freedom and rights, or protect to life and property, then that right you cannot enjoy that right. And that's why the police, the IG and others warn that if you want to protest peacefully, we need to cooperate with you, cooperate with us, work with us. When I was in service, that is what we do. We appeal to them, they listen. Like Oshomole when he was president of the Nigerian Labour Congress and so forth. So I think Nigerians should please listen to what the appeals of the government. And the government should also make themselves worthy. The leaders should make themselves worthy of the trust of the citizens, like talk about trust deficit. Let our leaders should make themselves worthy of the trust of the citizens. Like the man in Kogi Commissioner was trying to tell us that there was that communication between the government and the people. You know, when the people are too far alienated from, when the government is too alienated from the people, it creates suspicion, it creates conflict. And we know that the gap between the rich and the poor in this country is too wide. And that's what the government should try to do to bridge the gap. And we know that patience is a virtue. The government have told us we are looking into all these complaints, all these issues. We know the economy is hard, but you see, it is easier to destroy than to build. Some of these problems have lingered for too long, many years. So and then now the present administration is trying to see how to make things better. It takes time. Now for instance, like I saw in Kano, they burned vehicles, some said vehicles were burned and so forth. Where would the government get money to procure those things to make things better for the citizens? And the citizens are the prime beneficiary of a safe and secure environment. Those whose cars are being destroyed, like the instance Dr. Kabiru mentioned in Kano, an innocent woman, her things were looted away. For not just cause, she's also a victim of the economy, harsh economy. So I think we should all understand, we should all know that we're Nigerians, we're all stakeholders, and the citizens are the prime beneficiary of a safe and secure and peaceful Nigeria. So let us all work towards making Nigeria safe and secure for all of us, making Nigeria peaceful. And again, I want to say that national orientation should actually step up action. Most Nigerians don't know about their constitutional obligation and constitutional right. Nigerians are concerned about my right. What are our obligations as citizens? As Section 24 of the Constitution provides that it's constitutional to every Nigerian citizen to assist lawful agencies in the maintaining of law and order. Now, by going to destroy property and so forth, are they really living as responsible citizens? Of course, no. So let Nigerians be responsible citizens. Let us see how we can contribute to the growth and development of our country. And by so doing, we will be, that's patriotism. I was also John Kennedy, who told Americans that every American should not think what the country will make and do for him or her. Every American should think what he or she can do to make America a great nation. That's patriotism. You see, life is based on principle of reciprocity.
But Lawrence,
the governance appeal.
But Lawrence,
Yes.
the protesters will ask you that patriotism, is it just on the part of the citizens alone, without leaders showing patriotism? And do you think that what's happened in some states yesterday could have been averted if their governors, like we saw in Rivers, where the governor came address protesters and it went as peaceful as possible? Do you think that if the governors were patriotic and thought about Nigeria and protecting what they had in the states and addressing these people, maybe we would have seen a different turn of events yesterday?
Yeah, like I said earlier, that the rulers of this country, our leaders should not alienate themselves from the people. You see, when you alienate yourself, even the family, should be born to, should be close to the people. When they get to the people, they will listen to them, make themselves, they will listen, they have a listening ear. And when they have a listening ear, communication is very, very important. When there is no communication, when people are alienated from each other, this brings suspicion. So at least when the government, like the government mentioned the issue of Governor of Bayelsa, he came in and assured them that's confidence building. Oh, we've listened to, we've had the challenges, we know what is happening, we're going to make sure things are better. At least building confidence and trust. But when you don't alienate yourself, you don't speak to the people at all, it brings suspicion. Any society where there's inequality, like I talk about the gap between the rich and the poor is so wide. Inequality brings conflict and crisis. And when there's inequity, it's not too healthy for a perceived society. So I think both the government and the people should know that we have obligation to build this country, to make this country safe and secure. And please, particularly our colleagues in the civil society are not there to provoke, to instigate violence at all. Civil society are there to promote development and growth, peace and security. So I want to appeal to our civil society. Organizers of this protest, it's not right. It's not the best for us, and so we should therefore try to see how we can make this country safe and secure. And if you know that, protesters should also know that the law does not protect them. Laws are meant to guide our behaviors and our conduct as citizens for general interest of the society. Like Rossio in his theory of agricultural contract postulated that the citizens have to give us some of their rights to enable the state to protect them. That's a social fact. And we should know that, protesters should know that even if you have a right to your life, but Section 33 of the Constitution provides that if in the course of that is of a riot, and you lost your life, you don't have a right to your life any longer. Because you're not a threat to national security, a threat to peace and security, a threat to the rights of other people. So the national orientation should carry some of this orientation, so that the people begin to understand, Nigerians begin to understand, they inculcate in Nigeria those values that promote peace and unity and the betterment of this country.
Thank you very much, CP, that we should close the gap in communication and make Nigeria safe and secure for all, and that the right to protest is not absolute. Let's come to Professor Chogu right now. Something happened yesterday. I mean, there are a lot of destruction. Let me read this from the social handle of one of the ministers, that's the Minister of Communication. He said, sad to learn that our Digital Innovation Park in Kano, slated for launch next week to support our Technical Talent Accelerator, has been set ablaze and looted by protesters. Alongside this building is set to host our Baldyton Holiday Maker program for secondary school kids starting next week. A slight setback for our journey to deepening our workforce for technology while creating job opportunities for the youths. Millions of naira down the drain. So the question is, just like he asked, what do protesters want from this protest? Because if you go about, destroying public property, destroying this and making things more difficult for Nigerians, What exactly are you fighting for? There was an attempt yesterday also to detonate a bomb in Lagos, was foiled on time by security agents. There was a bomb blast in Bono yesterday, and this not enough reason for, I think it's not enough reason for the protester to rethink, the method they are going about this protest. Professor Ochogu.
I think that in my earlier statement, I mentioned the issue around the fragility, of our nation state. What that means is that it's so easy for everywhere to get tense and burn off. And that is why we need to exercise a lot of caution. If you look at the center, the Minister of Communication Technology spoke about the event that took place there. Over 500 Nigerian citizens, Kanu indigenes, Nigerian citizens would have benefited from that period within the summer break.
Yeah.
What that means is that is the future of our country too that is being mortgaged and being wasted. And because we know that ICT drives the world right now, so the knowledge and the skills that would have been acquired, from that particular center, with government funds investment in that particular sector, has gone down the drain. So who has lost? Not only the present generation, but the future generation of people who would have acquired those knowledge and skills, have lost that. I think that I want to believe that responsible citizens were behind the call for protest. With the event that has happened yesterday, the onus is on them, to call off this protest as it is now, if it is a protest. But if it is not a protest, perhaps there are other undertones that are not too clear to the public, because that is what happens in most cases. There are some people who might be disenchanted with government policies or government activities, or even disenchanted with individuals, because it even happens in organizations. And then they do all they can to try to sabotage the leadership. Once they are able to discredit the leadership acceptability in the public space too is undermined, becomes minimal, then they can have their own way. So it does happen. So that is why responsible leaders of the protesting organizations, in their respective cells, across the country, must call this protest to an end.
In fact, just for me to just come in here, one of their lawyers, I think Adeguru, was calling yesterday that let's just stop this protest. I mean, we've had enough for today. So let's now engage government.
The danger for those kind of leadership is the fact too that their level of legitimacy to control even the protesters once they set it on is limited. That is the danger.
So, but what can leaders do?
The leaders of the protesters?
No,
yeah, because
leaders of, the government. What can they do to stop the protesters at this point?
No, the government will do all that it can.
Like what?
That is why in my earlier opening I say it has moved from protests to riot and a likely uprising. There are instruments of control of violence. I met CP over 20 years ago in Small Arms Life Report seminar, and we've known since then. What I'm trying to say is that the government have all the assets that is needed, for the control of violence. Let's not make any doubt of that of it. I work in the peace sector, so I'll talk around non-use of force. But that is not to say that the government does not have elements of force, to control all these things. The government have all the intelligence and everything that it needs. But we operate a democratic space whereby the government, to a very large extent, to respect the rights of its citizens. Because first and foremost, we are all citizens, we are all Nigerians. CP was in the police force before, but now he's out, also in the private sector and in the civil society space. So you might wear uniform. So we get to understand that. And there are people who have spent 35 years of their life waking up on a daily basis, carrying guns on how to help government, to move society in an orderly way. I hope you're understanding the point. So the same thing too, there are people in the human rights space too, who all they know too is how to protect the rights of people, in that right. So we must all at this point begin to respect our differences and the sectors where we find ourselves. You can see that I work for the government, the Director General of an institution, And I'm speaking, you know, both on the side of the people and the side of the government because of the nature of my own work. Because we serve as a bridge between civil society and the government in the area of conflict prevention and peace promotion. So I think that the protesters, like one of their leaders have said, this is the time, because it will get to a point they can no longer control it. You can't control crowd. If you gather 50 protesters over one particular issue and they begin to argue, they become a crowd. There is no sense in crowd. That is why it's easier to deal with organizations, for example, Nigerian Labour Congress. If they are the one that call for strike now, you can control that, you can lead it, you know, they can comfortably, people can have a conversation. It's easier to deal with than deal with a social movement, you know, that the leaderships are loose, largely faceless in most instances, you know, and all that. If you see what happened in Kaduna, what happened in Kanu, what happened in Gombe, Jigawa has been one of the most peaceful part of the northern Nigeria. So for some of us, you know, who have been conflict scholars, I was shocked with what happened in Jigawa. Yes, because Jigawa is one of the most peaceful part of northwestern part of the country. Even at the peak of Boko Haram, you never had one single incident in Jigawa. But what has happened now, we see a whole party secretariat being burnt down. So if you begin to look at it, you begin to see a marriage of, you begin to see the political dimension also, you know, of this particular crisis. And that is why I said that this is the time for both opposition politicians and politicians in government. You know, we need to have a national elite consensus over very critical issues. If you are not in government today, democracy is a recurrent elections. Every election cycle, you can still contest. So we must not destroy this country because of one particular election cycle. We need to accept ourselves as a people, as a nation. We need to join up ourselves because we are facing very difficult time as a nation. And we are all paying sacrifices directly and indirectly, whether we like it or not. So we must allow these sacrifices to yield results so that we don't kill, we don't throw away the baby and the bathwater, you know, to the public. We need to manage what we need to manage. We've all suffered. Everybody in this country have suffered. And that is the truth. If you didn't suffer the currency challenges, then you must have suffered fuel wahala, you know, and all that. So what kind of system or what kind of legacies are we trying to leave as a people?
Well, the protesters will tell you that not all Nigerians are suffering. So what would you want to say to them who think that way?
You know, the point is that there is opportunity for political restructuring. If you look at our 1999 constitution, if you look at our political structures and the way we've managed in the last 20-something years, there are deficits in it. I've had privilege of sitting where at times the president can take certain decisions and the decisions cannot percolate at the subnational level because the leaderships at the subnational level are not in agreement, you know, with it. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, for example, during Jonathan's time, the governors insisted that the money must be shared. And we've been in that sharing formula. And the president also cannot, for example, get federation account and say, okay, no, I'm going to ensure that this goes this way. No, the law does not allow it. He must reallocate. In short, he's not even the one that reallocates it. The FAC, the Federal Allocation Committee, Revenue Allocation Committee, will be the one to share it down the line. So the point I'm trying to make is that we can no longer afford the luxury of irresponsibility on the part of our political elites, both at all levels.
Okay.
This is the time more than ever before for all leadership across the different stratas of government, and business to be more innovative and creative to address some of these issues.
Sorry, we have to pause you there now because we have to take this break. After the break, the conversation continues. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA, and our focus is on dousing tension in the face of the current protests across the country. And we have our guest joining us via Zoom from Kogi State, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Communications, Kingsley Femi Fanwo. Kingsley, because of time, we're about rounding off this conversation. I would like you to speak about what you think can be done, just so that we can get the protesters to get back to their homes and wait for the policies of government to materialize. Of course, the president has done so much, and if you listen to him carefully, all the policies are targeted at making Nigeria better. Professor Ochogu said, well, it's all about patience. If the protesters were a bit patient, say the next 6 months, 1 year, of course, some of these policies would have materialized. What do you think can be done now on the part of government and then on the part of the protesters, and if you like, their leaders, just so that, the tension we saw yesterday can be reduced as much as possible?
Thank you very much. I want to say that we have different stakeholders to what we are witnessing in Nigeria right now. And all the stakeholders must play their own part. On the part of the protesters, they need to define what they want exactly, and they need to adopt the right approach to be able to achieve their goals. Because it is not, I cannot understand, I'm trying to bring myself to the understanding of why people would want to go on the streets, understanding the history of protests in Nigeria that had always been hijacked and turned to riots. This is unthinkable. If you are saying you are protesting because of hunger and you are you cannot marry the two together. There is no when you juxtapose some of their actions with the goals they claim to want to achieve, then that becomes very difficult. So they need to define what exactly they want. We also need to hold them to account because you cannot have a protest with faceless leaders. There must be leaders who will come forward and say, these are the things that we want to achieve with this. By so doing, it will be easier to be able to enter into negotiation, have a lot of conversations, interrogate their interest and all of that. Also, I would say that government also must be able to play its role. As all of the speakers today have always been talking about a way in which governance is brought down to the grassroots. You need to communicate with your people. For instance, in our dear state in Kogi here, the governor had procured hundreds of tractors and other farm machineries and farm inputs for farmers. And on each occasion, we'll call the farmer groups, associations to the roundtable to discuss how they will make the best of this. And, people already know that some of these machineries have been distributed, some are still on ground. They will not allow any protest that will lead to the vandalization of all of this. So we need to, at every point in time, to have this conversation with people, to communicate our ideas, to communicate our goals, to communicate what we are doing. When they have that confidence, it will be very easy for them to. And lastly, what I would say is that it's very unfortunate that we are going this route. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's policies are policies that are already yielding fruits. They are policies that are already changing the narrative. So I think he's one of the boldest presidents to have ever governed this country. Why people were running away from banana peels of the first subsidy, he announced it on the day of his inauguration that subsidy was gone, and that is the way leaders act. He was not trying to play to the political correctness of wanting a second term or whatever. He wanted governance. He wanted Nigeria to be, and that led to those decisions. Yes, those decisions are bring temporary. That's what I call those hardship, temporary hardship. But if we go with him, if we follow the path and also follow the plans and the policies that are put in place to cushion this and rebound our country's economy, then we'll be out of these shambles. And, we cannot answer questions of 60 years of his management in just 1 year. And he's doing his best to make sure that our nation moves forward. What I would say from here is that the sub-nationals must communicate with the people. This is very important. What we are witnessing now, what we witnessed yesterday in some parts of the country is unacceptable. So we need to start asking leaders of the protest, leaders of government in those areas questions. They need to rise up to the occasion, roll up their sleeves, communicate with their people, let them see what they are saying, the situation better, and all of that. That is what we need in our nation at the moment.
Honorable Commissioner for Information and Communication, Kogi State, Honorable Kingsley Femi Fanwo, for your contribution there. That the important thing that you have said today is that the subnationals need to do more communication. They must create more awareness. There must be more awareness, especially at the grassroots level. Yeah, thank you very much. When we come back to the studio, Doctor, let me ask you this question, because we know that government actually has been engaging, with the people. Just 2 days ago, there was this press conference, the ministerial press conference, where government reeled out, all that they have been doing and how they are trying to ameliorate the hardship and the steps government is taking, to cushion the effect of this hardship. And government has not stopped. It's still continuing. They even called for the leaders of the protesters to come, but none was able to come forth. And that is where we have found ourselves right now. But we are looking for a way forward now. So at this instance, what advice can you give to security officials at this time? And the protesters, we are expected to run, these protests are supposed to run for another 8 days or thereabout. How should these remaining days, be conducted? How should they handle these remaining days?
Thank you. There are, I would say, two major things, and virtually everybody who spoke earlier on have mentioned them, and that's strategic communication at the federal and at the subnational level. This is the future of our country is at stake, and the losers, honestly, is our political office holders, especially, and I want to emphasize this, those in the legislative arm of government. The Speaker, House of Rep, was quite innovative. He invited youth groups, almost about 20 of them. I was fortunate I was part of those invited. And he did his best. He interacted with them. He heard them in a very genuine manner. But that's just one component at the federal level. Now that needs to translate down to each speaker. Because remember, that arm of government is the closest to the people. And if they think they have nothing to lose, they have more to lose than any other arm of government. They should engage with the people. So strategic communication. With due respect to the commissioner who spoke, this is not the time to deny hearing. When he says he doesn't know what the protesters want, we know what they want. When somebody is hungry, and when somebody who has diabetes is saying what some of the policies that have been implemented are death sentence to him, we know what they want. So this is not the time. Strategic communication by
continuous
government officials.
Strategic communication.
Yes, because strategic communication is two ways. You say, you listen, you analyze what you've heard, and then you put out. And all government officials should be joined, should understand the messaging that is coming out of their mouth. A single message, the right message from one person can douse this tension. So that's number one, strategic communication. Number two is community engagement. And in particular, I want to call on the police. There is no law enforcement agency that is closer to the people and that has, understandably, I believe, even though I have no way of confirming this, that has developed networks for engaging with the people better than the police, because they are at that level. So this is the time for the coordinators of our national security architecture, structure, to come together and identify those points within the community using structures that already exist. As an example, we're supposed to have a community policing committees at the granular level, 774 local governments. This is the time to activate them. What we saw before the protest, the types of engagement can be modified. we try to reach out to some certain persons in government to advise them that engagement requires more than what we saw. You can't stay in Abuja and engage, especially when somebody is hungry, especially when somebody believes that a death sentence has been declared on him because he can't afford medicine. So we know what these protesters want. We just need to address with them. And what we try to do, as you know, I run a company, and we have quote unquote an intelligence arm in that company. We try to synthesize the demands of the people based on what we've been hearing over the last 2 weeks. One message that the government can send out at the federal and state level is to say these are the steps we're taking to reduce the cost of governance. That message will go a long way. If the president, the governors, name them, can come out and tell the people these are steps we're taking to reduce the cost of governance. Then food. The president has done a lot in terms of ways to reduce the cost of food, but the cost of food is still very high. Anything that the government can do at this point in time to reduce that. And number 3 is health. If these 3 things can be done, I believe it will go a long way towards Dousing detention. Remember, I've mentioned the 2 major things: strategic communication and then, of course, community engagement.
You talked about Dousing detention and then the strategic communication and then, the other measures you talked about. Do you think that maintaining these strategies, by government officials will go preventing something like this in the future? Because sometimes, like, some of the protesters were saying that some of the engagements were done just hours before the protest, and they already had strategies to go out. So those communication didn't quite hit home. So what would you advise, going forward, just so that there's no formation like what we're seeing at the moment?
Sincerity of purpose. Governance is local. You once there's that sincerity of purpose, people. I mean, I'm careful not to be not to say things that would sound as if, but I am at a point where I'm very concerned about those that are around the president. Like I said, these things were very clear. We had them, we know them. So this is the time to reach out to the people, not through traditional platforms. You can't spend money, organize a conference, let's say in the Transcorp, and think you've reached the people. No, go out to them. There are existing structures. As an example, Prof heads a peace structure that is being funded by the government. Use organizations like that. NTA is allegedly or supposedly the largest network in the country that has the capacity to reach out.
It's not alleged, it's proven.
It's proven that it is. So reach out, use strategic communication. And, this is the time for some form of meetings, especially at the federal and subnational level, to sit down and let the president and the governors meet and then come out with statements. I've mentioned the 3 key areas that I believe would reach the people. I've talked about the cost of governance, reduce it. I've talked about food. I've talked about health. Let the president and the governors meet and discuss tangible ways to reduce these 3 things. And I the protesters would listen. Earlier on I talked about intercessors. There are people that are trusted by the protesters, by quote unquote civil society organizations that are behind the protest. We know them. This is the time for government to bring them on board, let them speak through your medium, the NTA as an example, and douse the tension. Nobody stands to gain if this protest continues at the level that it's going.
Thank you very much. Nobody stands to gain if these protests continue. CP Lawrence, let's bring you in. How can these protesters now be brought, to the table for dialogue? Because at this moment, that is what is needed to actually douse the tension, to ease, to restore normalcy. What steps do you think government should take, besides all that have been mentioned?
You see, when I was sick in Abuja, there was serious crisis in Kwali. I personally went there. I had a town hall meeting with everybody, the youth, women, elders, everybody, and I was able to resolve the problem. You see, engaging the people, broad-based consultation, consult with the people. Let them come and say openly, and you be like Dr. Kabiru said, sincerity of purpose. Let us be sincere. You see, when you dance, you don't see your back. People are watching our leaders, watching our politicians, watching everybody. So I think they should engage the people, like Kabiru said, broad-based consultation, and town hall meetings with the people, the youth. When I was sitting in Abuja, I go to Central Mosque to deliver lectures on peace and security. With the Imam, and we'll coordinate together. That is getting close to the people, deal with the people. These are the old strategies how to win the hearts and minds of the people, where they can trust you, they can believe in you. And when you talk to them, they will listen. But when there's that gap alienated from the people, it creates suspicion. So I think it's like to be broad-based consultation, all the youths, and also, like Kabiru said, inviting the civil society. Civil society know that they also have a stake in this country. They have a stake in this country. And if like I said earlier, who are the prime beneficiary of a peace and secure Nigeria? It's the citizens. If we the citizens want to destroy our own country, where do we stand to gain? And you see, the youth should know that if today is destroyed, their future will be very, very bleak. So they should therefore work how to promote peace, to build a sustainable development, and governance is all about the people. Our leaders should know that governance is all about the people. Governance is not just about who controls power, who dominates. No, you empower the people, and Section 14B of the Constitution provides that the prime purpose of government is the welfare and security of the people. And I think Mr. President is doing that. Like somebody said, you see, some attributes I love Mr. President is that he has courage to take decisions, and he wants to make things better for this country. He has been a Democrat. He has gone through the whole process. So Nigerians, we should have a listening ear. And the other thing is that what lessons have we learned? Both the government and the protesters and leaders of protesters. Because when they say protest, they have no rules of engagement. Like Prof said, it's a crowd. And when you cannot control crowd, they do what they like. And they could cause mayhem, but the blame comes to the leaders. So the leaders, those who are organizing this protest know that they have a stake in this country. And they know they should know that they're vicariously liable for whatever that is happening. Because they have no rules of engagement with the protesters. They just come to the street and protest. So I think both the government and the people we should all listen to one another. Life is based on the principle of reciprocity. And so here one security must do equity. But equity with clean hands. If the people want peace, they should also give Nigeria development. You see, progress and development, it takes time. And success does not come easy. You must make some sacrifice. If you want to make an A in your class, in the class, you must sacrifice sleep. You must be prepared to work hard. You must be prepared to be patient, and look on to work towards achieving greater goals. So we Nigerians should know that we have a stake, and we should all work towards making Nigeria safe and secure for all of us. And our leaders should know that they're also accountable. They should see whatever they can do and listen to the people, address the problem that Mr. President is doing. You see, you see Mr. President, a man who doesn't play to the gallery. It's based on reality. What are the needs? And if the government has promised that we're going to handle this problem, I think we Nigerians should have a listening ear and also be patient. Patience is a virtue. You cannot achieve changes overnight. We need to be patient with the government, and the government will need to reciprocate by listening to the needs of the people.
Thank you very much, Lawrence Alubi. Let's hear the final thoughts of Professor Ochogu before we go in. Just 30 seconds. What will be your last words as we round off?
I think my last word will be protesters. There are categories of protesters now. The real protesters who started it should please call off this protest right now. The miscreants who are rioting and trying to do uprisings, the law enforcement agencies must take their course. Because we can no longer afford the destructions of lives and properties. So the bright protesters, this is the right time to call off the strike, call off the protest. The street teachings who are taking advantages of the protest to cause mayhem on society, the law enforcement agencies must take their course.
They should call off the protest and come to dialogue table.
Call off the protest, identify themselves, call for engagement, and then there will be constructive engagement on the side of responsible protesters and the responsible government. You know, for them to engage.
Of course, we have a responsible government, and I'm sure that the protesters would become responsible at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Lawrence Alobi, lawyer and former CPFCT. Thank you for being our guest this morning. We appreciate your thoughts. Professor Joseph Ochogo, DG Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. It was a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Dr. Kabiru Adamu, Security Risk Management Expert. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, Honorable Kingsley Femi Ifanwo, we want to continue to see what we saw yesterday in Kogi State, peaceful, disposition of Kogi people. Honorable Commissioner for Information and Communications, Kogi State, thank you for being a part of the program this morning.
Thank you very much for having me, and I want to assure you that Kogi will remain very peaceful.
Right.
Thank you.
That's a fine point to leave the conversation. I would hope that we see peace across the country today. I'm Ian Ray John. That's Good Morning Nigeria this Friday. Stay safe and be peaceful.
And I'm Ademola Adeoye. Thanks for joining us and have a wonderful day.